myself, Professor Kiran Lakkam from JCE College, Belgaum. Today we will discuss on new chapter, that is computer-aided process planning. Okay, that is module 2, computer-aided process planning and control system. So first let us go for discussing some basic terms here. So that is we have two terms, that is process planning and production planning. Let us understand what is process planning and what is production planning. For in this chapter we are discussing about process planning, but let us understand both the things here. So mainly before these things, what we need to know is product design. What is product design? It is nothing but the plan for the product and its components and sub-assemblies. We are going for planning how what all type of component it has to be and all. Okay, now these things, how to manufacture these things, how to link the suppliers and the production system, so everything comes under process planning and all. Okay, it involves determining the sequence of products processing and assembly steps that must be accomplished to make the product. Okay, so that is what I just told. It involves a sequence of processing assembly steps. Okay, it may be assembly steps or it may be processing steps. Okay, we are going for sequencing that one. We are going for planning according to the timings and all, and accomplishing that one to make a product. This is what we call it as process planning. Now when it comes for production planning, is nothing but it is concerned with the logistic issues of making the product. Okay, so that is what we have. What type of equipment and tooling are required to fabricate the parts and assemble the product. Okay, so these all things comes under production planning. So like that we have the process planning and production planning, but here now we are going for discussing only process planning. Okay, now that is what we have. Process planning involves determining the most appropriate manufacturing and assembly processes and the sequences in which they should be accomplished to produce a given part or product. Okay, and it is done by the specifications and all by the design department what it is being given. Okay, now let us have what all may be the decisions and details usually included within the scope of process planning. Okay, here are few of the points which we need to consider while planning a process. Okay, interpretation of design drawings. Okay, we need to interpret the design drawings. Okay, and plan according the procedure, what all it has to be start of the processing procedure, everything we need to plan according to the drawings, the design drawings of the product. Okay, next comes the process and sequence. Okay, the process planner must select which processes are required and their sequence. Okay, what all which work has to be done when that sequence has to be briefed in detail. So equipment selection. So in general, process planners must develop plans that utilize existing equipments in the plant. Okay, otherwise we need to purchase the equipments which all are needed for that product. So tools, dies, molds, fixtures and gauges. Okay, the process planner must decide what type of tool is required, what type of dies are required, and everything we need to plan it. Okay, next comes the methods analysis. Okay, workplace layout, small tools, hoists and lifting heavy parts. Even in same cases, hand and body motions must be specified for manual operations. So these all things has to be planned. Work standards we have to plan. Then cutting tools and cutting conditions, this must be specified. Okay, so cutting tools, what all has to be required for the processing of those parts, and cutting conditions, how it has to be, what data handbook has to be the recommended. So these all things has to be taken care for the process planning. Next comes process planning for parts. Okay, for individual parts the processing sequence is documented. Okay, on the form called a root sheet. Commonly we call it as a root sheet, in which everything will be shown and all. Okay, so that is what how we process planning, that is root sheet we have. Okay, so different terms it will be called. A typical root sheet, that is what it has been shown previously. It includes a few of the things which are listed here. One is all operations to be, it includes the operations to be performed on the work part listed in the order in which they should be performed. That is one point. Another point is a brief description of each operation indicating the processing to be accompanied with references to dimensions and tolerances on the part drawing. Okay, so that is also it has been there. The specification machines on which the work is to be done, and any special tooling such as dies, molds, cutting tools, jigs and fixtures, and gauges. Okay, so these are a few of the points which will be there in the route sheet. Okay, so here we have a typical sequence with which there is a block diagram what it has been shown, typical sequence of processes required in a part fabrication. Okay, that is starting of raw material. So next comes the basic processes what all are there, then secondary processes, next comes the property enhancing process, finishing operations, and finished product. Okay, again in property enhancing processes, again some feedbacks will be given, that is additional secondary processes sometimes required following property enhancement, so that again it will be given for the secondary, then it will be again forward for the next step. So property enhancing process, there some revisions, so feedbacks will be taken. Okay, then it is given for the finishing operations, then we get the finished part. That is nothing but here it will be checked for the standards what it has been designed. If not, again it will be given back to the shop floor, again it will be corrected, and then it will be given for the finishing operations. Okay, so like this the sequence of processes how it goes on. Okay, now next comes a processing sequence. Commonly it consists of a basic process, secondary process, operations, that is what just now we saw. Okay, so those all things we have here. Next comes this same thing, the processes how it has been scheduled here. Basic processes, starting material, secondary processes what all are there, final shape how we get, enhancing properties what all it is needed if needed, finishing processes. This is all what the chart it is been there. Okay, so like this what we have the introduction